Hi guys, I'm Serena and today we're going to be talking about the Four of Pentacles. So the Four of Pentacles really at the heart represents a need for security. If we think about the four representing stability, like four legs on a table, and the pentacles representing like the physical realm or physical material, physical matter, physical abundance, so like our finances, it's like our need for security. Because like if you think about it, a table needs four legs to stand up. A table is a physical object. So the Four of Pentacles represents our desire for physical or financial stability. I just said that. It's represented by the astrological aspect of the sun in Capricorn. So what I know about Capricorns is that they like to grind pretty hard. Like I like to consider Capricorns like the goat, not only because of like their like astrological totem, but because like if you think of like the greatest of all time at anything, almost always it's gonna be a Capricorn, like Muhammad Ali, like Jeffrey Bezos. Like they just like want to put in 110% effort every single day, and that sometimes comes at the cost of like missing out on different opportunities that they have to spend with their family or to be charitable with their time and with their emotions. So the Four of Pentacles can also represent greed in a way, or in that way. It's also represented by Saturn in the second house, or it personifies the astrological aspect of Saturn in the second house. So what do we know about Saturn in the second house? So these people tend to be cautious, frugal, and conservative, somewhat like a Capricorn sun. So the challenge that these individuals face in regards to this placement involve a struggle to walk the line between frugality and overindulgence. So they're either spending too much of their money on something mundane, or they're following too strict of a budget and it's causing restrictions in their life, and it's not allowing money to flow through them and to be like a channel that is just part of life. They see it more as like a means to an end, when in reality physical matter or like money, finances are like something that is like a living entity on our earth that like dictates things, that it governs us. Like money is like its own sort of like living being. So keeping too tight of a budget will restrict the energy flow of money both in and out of your life. Money is something that circulates and returns to us. So granted that we use discernment. So obviously we shouldn't like overindulge in things, but at the same time it's like if we have a budget of $110 this week for groceries and we go to the store and it ends up kind of coming to like a total of like $125 or $130, like putting things back so that we can be within our 110 budget, if we don't actually have to do that, if it's just costing us $20 in our savings, like I think that like you should go ahead and purchase those things as long as you can, because those things that you're getting at the grocery store are gonna like nourish you, or say that it's like for your hygiene maintenance. Like you want to be able to indulge sometimes and to feel grateful for being able to indulge in those things, like instead of feeling like a scarcity mindset whenever you go over your limit. Just being grateful that you have that extra money to spend on something that you actually need, and being grateful for that thing that you're purchasing is going to benefit you in the long run more than like following the strict budget and like saving $10 more a week. You know what I'm saying? So it also brings me to the point that like giving to homeless people is going to bring you blessings, because like we said, money circulates. If you have an abundance mindset, what that means is really just that you feel thankful and grateful to be able to share the blessings that God has given to you in your life, and whenever you share those blessings with people who are in need, that allows you to have money flow back into your life, and for you to be like a sponge that absorbs money. Like, think of it like squeezing money out of yourself and just picking it right back up. That's the image I'm getting at this time. So I also want to give a little bit of a testimony to that. Whenever I was very, very poor and I did not have any money, I would give to the St. Jude's organization, because I really have a deep compassion in my heart for children who experience really traumatic events, such as like getting like a deadly disease like cancer. And so I know that St. Jude's is an organization that I actually am willing to give my money to. And so even when I had nothing to give, I would give to that organization. And I think because of that, even though I should not have been able to pay my bills, and I definitely should not have been giving to St. Jude's, God at that time always made sure that me and my family were provided for, and that we always had enough to eat and enough to drink, and clothes on our back, and all of our bills paid. So that's just another example of how like money is like a flow of energy that comes and goes from our lives. So with that being said, there are certain things that I will always choose to go over budget for, and for me personally, those things are books and high quality or healthy foods. Not so much like takeout, but like if I want to buy strawberries and it's gonna cost me more money to buy organic strawberries, like I'm always gonna do that. Or organic chicken, I always spend money on really healthy meats, because I just don't ethically like support like Tyson or any of those other like really super unethical farming practices. So I will always choose to go over budget for books, especially. I think that books are like a source of knowledge, and if at any point like society was to collapse and we wouldn't have the internet anymore, that I'm gonna have the information that I have from those books, and also that information can just be stored in my mind once I absorb that information. So whatever it is for you, I think like you should choose things that you're willing to go over budget for, and that way you're not like living this like restricted lifestyle where like you're over budgeting or you're overindulging on everything. Like pick set things that align with your values and overindulge in those things specifically, so that you're able to have the security that you're searching for at this time. So advice for this placement in regards to spending is to release all stern thinking. So like we said, like strict budgeting. By prioritizing financial greed over the happiness of yourself and your family, you are sacrificing experiences and memories. So that goes back to what we were talking about, like the sun in Capricorn. Like Capricorns want to be the greatest of all time so badly that it comes at the price sometimes of their mental well-being, or their happiness, or time spent with their family, or even like it causes them to have friction within their family, because they're so focused on earning an income to create that security for their family that they sometimes lose sight of the big picture, which is to have like harmony within their everyday life in relation with their family. So it can come out sometimes as like anger or aggression whenever these things aren't in balance. Nourishing your mind, body, and soul is going to give you the stability that you're actually craving. So like we said, like aligning your values with what you're willing to overindulge in, and what you're willing to like put extra money in the budget for. Or like if charity is something that you want to prioritize in your life, like actually taking money aside and doing that is going to give you like nourishment in your soul and in your spirit. And so another point that I had was that happiness increases with salary, up until $60,000 a year. So the more money that you make, the more your happiness is correlating in an upward trend until you reach $60,000 a year. And at that point, it plateaus and your happiness doesn't increase with the more amount of money that you make. So ask yourself what you're actually trying to gain with so much excess, because chances are it's that you're trying to cultivate a certain feeling within yourself, such as like happiness or creativity or contentment, and all of those things can be achieved through having money. So it's okay to ask for an abundance of money. Sometimes I start to feel like I don't have a right to ask for those things because there are people in the world that don't have those things. But I'm trying to give myself permission to do so at this time, because I recently heard that like we can pray and ask for whatever we want. We have permission to ask whatever we want from God, and God in the end is going to give us what he thinks that is right for us to have. Like only through us asking, though, will he give it to us. And I don't know how true that is, obviously, but it's something that resonated with me. So in reverse, the Four of Pentacles can represent like a Mr. Scrooge type mentality. So like greediness, or even emotionally, especially emotionally, it can represent greed in an emotional sense of the word. So upright, it can represent setting personal boundaries because of that security, and you can think of it sort of like as a fortress around yourself, that it represents like personal boundaries. See how she's like holding on to this pentacle? It's like that's what her need for security, she's like creating that, like she's using her body like as a boundary. So it also represents protecting ourselves and our inner peace. So those personal boundaries that we're setting at this time, or that we're being encouraged to set at this time, are going to protect our personal peace within our minds and within our hearts, so that we're able to like continue on our path without getting distracted or being pulled back in any way. So that is something that would be advised if you were to pull this card in a reading. But when in reverse, in regards to what limits we're facing, the Four of Pentacles represents greed, blocking out feelings, or our tendency to use money to block out the outside world, or like hoarding, or like emotional hoarding. So you could be hoarding negative feelings surrounding a situation, or hoarding, it's almost reminds me of like whenever you check somebody's social media profile, that like it always just makes you feel bad because you're not really friends anymore, and then you get on there and you're like, oh wow, they're like so much cooler than me or whatever, and like that feeling, like you're addicted to that feeling that you're giving yourself, that negative like flood of emotions of like looking at their page. Like that to me is almost what this is representing, because you're not respecting your own personal boundaries to not go make yourself feel bad in that way. And so it's disturbing your inner peace, and so you have to like have control over whatever that thing is for you that makes you feel bad, like maybe listening to sad music, or like overindulging in these memories that like create this like sense of lack inside of yourself, because right now you're craving security and you could be blocking out your feelings. Maybe you're not processing your feelings correctly, or maybe you're blocking out other people at this time because you have a need for security, which is valid, but at the same time you have to ask yourself, like, am I closing myself off to the world? Because that's also not healthy. And there are people in our lives, and they're not perfect people. Everybody makes mistakes, but if we are constantly like holding grudges against people, like that's not encouraging our personal growth like whatsoever. In the end, that's ultimately just causing us to be more depressed and to shield ourselves away from other people. And so in regards to the Four of Pentacles, it could also represent using money to do that. Like if you're constantly ordering DoorDash and you have like social anxiety, that is enabling your social anxiety. That is causing more anxiety within yourself, because you're telling yourself, you're putting more distance in between like you having an actual social interaction with someone. So whenever the time comes for you to have another one, it's like creating all this anxiety because you're not doing it on a regular enough basis. And yeah, so like you're blocking yourself off for the world, and you're causing like your own inner peace to be disturbed, and you're not able to just live the life that you want to live anymore because you're like riddled with this anxiety. Does that make sense? So be possessive, but don't hold on too tightly. So like what kind of image came to me whenever I was thinking about that is like, you know, the little mouse from Cinderella, whenever she like throws those corn kernels on the ground, and Gus like picks them all up, and he has them in his hands, and he has like them all the way up to his chin, and then he like tries to grab one more, and they all just like burst out, like, and they spill all over, and the cat almost gets him. I hope that you know what I'm talking about, but that's what that kind of reminded me of, is like, be possessive of your emotional security, of your financial security, but at the same time, like, don't be so greedy with it, because you're like losing the plot. The idea is to like get the food away, right? To escape with like happiness, maybe, or whatever it is for you. And like when you hold on too tightly to it, it's like you lose control of everything. So in a personal reading, the Four of Pentacles could represent, it could actually be encouraging you to learn about and actively set and maintain healthy boundaries that protect your inner peace. That includes boundaries surrounding your alone time. So at this time, you could be encouraged to be spending more time alone. Maybe there's things that you do whenever you're alone that like give yourself peace of mind, or such as like reading or like researching things, or whatever it is that you do whenever you're alone, that's what is giving you security. So you could be encouraged to be spending time alone so that you can encourage that security, and that way you don't feel the need to like overindulge in it. So also, back to the personal boundaries, it's like, maybe watch some videos about it. Maybe your family doesn't know too much about boundaries, or maybe you haven't been respecting your own boundaries for whatever reason. So it could be encouraging you to do that if it is applicable. So in a love reading, also in a personal reading, it could be representing the need that you have to start a budget or a savings account, because it has to do with our financial security, right? So like overindulging in budgeting, like following a strict budget, it's like encouraging you to start a budget, but it's also reminding you that like it's just like numbers on a piece of paper at the end of the day. It's just there to like facilitate your growth financially. It's not something that's meant to be taken so literally, and it's always like you can always tweak it. You can always work with it. There's a system called like a cash envelope system, where you budget out each thing and you go get that exact amount of money and put it in the envelope, and then you kind of like have money to play with at the end, if you have money left over in your envelope, whatever. Anyway, you should research it. It could be indicating that if you're struggling financially at this time, that maybe you should consider starting a budget, or at least a savings account, so that if in case something were to happen, you have that security, or you can have that feeling of security inside of yourself, knowing that you're setting money aside each month, just in case something really devastating takes place in your life, God forbid. So in a love reading, it could indicate that you are holding very tightly to a new lover, and that you're being very generous with your time and the resources, with your time and resources with someone that you're in a relationship with. Or if you're single, it could be representing a period of reclusion. So that's okay if you don't feel like going out at this time if you're single, but at the same time, just remember that like, set your boundaries, but don't like close yourself off to the world, because like, but if that's what you're feeling called to do, it's like, that's fine. That it just could be an indication of that, and it's not anything that's wrong with it. But if you feel like you want to be out there and you're not, and you feel like you are being a reclusive type of person, especially when it comes to love, like, just remember that you can set boundaries, and the only person that you can set boundaries for is yourself. You can't set boundaries for somebody else. You can't be like, you can't talk to me like that. You can only say, like, I'm not going to talk to them if they talk to me in this way. Or, like, you have to text me back within a certain number of hours. Or, like, you're in trouble by me or something. You can't do that. You can only be like, well, if they don't text me back within this number of hours, then I'm just not going to text them back. You can't, like, control other people. You can only set boundaries in regards to yourself, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. So in a career reading, the Four of Pentacles actually discourages risky behavior and encourages you to hold on to what you have at this time. So although being too greedy is discouraged when it comes to negotiation, because you might actually miss out on an opportunity, which could just be a temporary stepping stone because you're being greedy. Like if you asked for $30 an hour and they offer you 28, like the answer might not be to just turn that down completely. It might be a stepping stone. So yeah, it might be an indication that you're being too greedy, or if you're thinking about taking a financial risk, I think it would discourage you from doing that at this time, and to just, it's like telling you to hold on to what you have, right? Hold on to it, and don't be so naive with your purchases. So this is just a random thing that apparently I wanted to talk about at the end of this video. So the night before I made this spreadsheet for the video, I guess I had a dream about the world coming to an end, and if I remember correctly, it was like not end times, but it was like society was like collapsing and we had to leave the city. And so I had to pack things to go out into the country so that we could like live and survive, but we had to be doing it like quickly. And for whatever reason, I was like filling all of these like boxes up with like all of our stuff, and there wasn't even room in our car to fit everything. And I just kept putting, like, I was trying to take everything with me, and it was very like, by the time that I had packed everything up and we were like, okay, we have to leave right now, like there was not enough time to pack everything. There wasn't any room, and I was just like really upset with myself that I had wasted time like packing everything, when instead I could have like just packed like a couple of boxes with our most like quintessential items, right? So like just remember that like these things that like consume our lives, or that we have in our lives, they're just like temporary and they don't actually exist. Like we can't take them with us when we die. So just like, it could be encouraging you to like just focus on like the essential aspects of your life instead of like sorry, I'm so distracted, somebody's here. Whatever you took from that, yeah. Okay, bye.